recorded and we can kick it off. So yeah, welcome everyone. This is a Startup Grind fireside chat here with Tino Go, the founder of Baru. And Startup Grind is it's an organization started in Silicon Valley, expanding across the world to 500 different chapters. And our mission is really helping entrepreneurs tell their story and give perspectives to up and coming entrepreneurs and members of the startup ecosystem, where we can all learn from shared experiences, connect together, and help each other grow our ventures. So yeah, we host these fireside chat, panel discussions, pitch events, and other events for founders. This is part of the Startup Grind Boston chapter, and we're glad to be joined virtually from Tino as well. Out in the Ohio area. And yeah, so we welcome, to any of our virtual events, we welcome you to tune in from wherever you're coming in from as well. And yeah, part of these discussions is really keeping it open and conversational, helping tell the story. Also, any questions, comments you have along the way, I'll be monitoring the chat and asking to Tino as well. And then towards the end of the discussion, we're going to open it up to come on stage and ask questions directly. So yeah, just to kick it off, Tino, would love to have you give a quick background introduction on what you're doing at Baru and how you're creating.
Is that good?
Sorry, I'm just gonna keep everyone on mute for now, but yeah, we'll love to have you give an intro on what Baru is and the platform you designed to help customize anyone's space wherever you're located.
Yeah, so what Baru is the basic genesis of the idea is it was a two-sided issue. When you're trying to actually furnish a home, it's easy to find the furniture you want, but it's hard to find it in the right configuration, the size, color, material that you need it. And then the other side of the other problem we're solving is there are thousands of underused manufacturing robotics in North America and eventually throughout the world. Because these robots, these manufacturing machines, are digitally controlled, my hypothesis is that we should be able to translate what's in our mind directly into the manufacturing instructions that those robots use. And so that's what we've developed. We've developed a marketplace that allows people to express desire and translate it, and we translate it into machine instructions for custom fabrication. And so that's what we are. Baru is a marketplace where we have machines on one side and we have customers on the other side. We translate those customers' orders into the custom machine code, and then we use an existing and installed idle machine in the customer's hometown for localized on-demand manufacturing.
Yeah, no, that sounds amazing. So what was the origin? Like, was this a personal problem you were having with furniture in your space, or did you see this opportunity in the market? Like, how did you come up with the idea originally?
Yeah, so it's there have been a couple of times when I've wanted to buy something for my home and I was frustrated that I couldn't find it. The first time was in Paris when, I wanted a huge desk overlooking, in my living room where in 1988 where I could put all my oversized IT equipment. And I couldn't find it, so I made it myself in my company's workshop. The second time was more recent, and I wanted a bookcase for my desk for a unique spot in my house. And it wasn't surprising that I couldn't find it, but what was shocking was to get a bookcase made in the 21st century was a medieval process. And that was just unacceptable to me because I knew the state of automation, I knew the state of software had advanced to the point where, as Serge put it, should be able to print our furniture, print on demand. And so I set out to solve this problem.
And yeah, and you had this problem you set out to solve. Was the original idea and the way you would work with these custom furniture shops, is that what you started out with, or how far has it come, from that first idea to what you've developed today?
It really hasn't changed, because the whole premise was I knew that automation existed, and then my background is corporate finance and operations, and so I know that whenever you have automation, it's or CapEx, you have generally there's often a struggle to keep that CapEx fully utilized. So that was just a premise. And I validated that premise, and I discovered that these thousands of CNC machines in the custom cabinet shops and millwork shops all over the country are on average used 2 hours a day. And so we've got 22 hours a day of potential production time. And all I had to do was tap into it and make it easy to tap into. And so when I was investigating, okay, how do we build a operating model and a business around this? I investigated other businesses that tried to do the same thing, like custommade.com, like other marketplaces, Open Desk. And what I discovered was they left too much friction on either the customer side or on the supplier side, on the manufacturer side. And that prevented the easy transaction and, easy and a cost-effective transaction. And so what we've done different is we've made it super easy for the customer. We've made it e-commerce. And then for the manufacturer, we've taken our manufacturing instructions down to the machine level. So we provide the machine level code and we provide the materials. So if you look at it from our local manufacturer's viewpoint, it completely bypasses the management structure, the design and engineering, it barely touches admin. It goes straight to the shop floor with just another work order.
Right.
And so that makes it super operationally effective and also profitable for these manufacturers.
Yeah, and we're seeing it's interesting because we're seeing a big push in other spaces, more in the digital side, for decentralized everything now. But when you look at the physical markets of you're having decentralized furniture making now through a platform like this, and seems like it's a market where the technology might have been coming that way, but it hadn't been applied to this particular industry or sector yet.
The thing is, until recently, there hasn't been enough normalization or harmonization in the data to create these digital operations. It started with Uber and DoorDash, and connecting the real world with the digital process, Airbnb. But manufacturing's been a tough nut because there's a lot of those information structures and operating methods are still very analog, and there's not enough normalization in the data to be able to create this digital operation. And that's been the challenge of modernizing manufacturing. And that's also one of the reasons why we're entering the category that we are, which is wood furniture, kitchen cabinets and such, and driving demand for these digital robotics, these machines, because in this category, there's sufficient normalization of the data to create a streamlined process. That said, we just earned a patent on the use of augmented and virtual reality to control these robotics. And so that technology, the patented technology, will be able to be used by other companies that will let them use the technology and improve their operations.
Amazing.
That was a chunk of information. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'd love to hear a couple of things we've touched on. So, like, if we go back to say, the bookshelf or the desk example, how would it work now? Say, I have a weird shaped alcove in my room and I want to have a bookshelf in that space. How would I use your platform to solve the problem?
Yeah, so right now you go to the website, you choose a product that you want, you order it in the dimensions and the material and color you need it. And when we receive the customer's order, we translate that order into machine instructions, and we issue the purchase orders for the materials to be delivered to the local manufacturer near the customer. And that's the process. And then the local manufacturer, they just take our machine instructions and the materials that we send them, process it and do some light assembly, and it's delivered either by the manufacturer just locally or by a third-party moving service, taking it that last mile from the manufacturer to the home,
right,
or office.
Sounds easy enough. Yeah, so what was the transition like for you? Like, you were in this corporate finance role and you had this big idea you wanted to get started on. Was it everything you were expecting jumping into entrepreneurship, or what were some of the challenges you might have faced that you weren't expecting diving in?
I wasn't expecting that the process would be so slow, partly because people didn't see the same vision I did. And so that was the biggest challenge. But in terms of entrepreneurship and creating something from zero, I've done this all my life, from straight out of high school. Despite a couple of scholarships, I dropped out of college after 6 weeks and started my own business. That business I took from Detroit to Los Angeles and then to Europe, where I spent 7 years. And then moving from I was doing advertising production, logistics and coordination. And so moving from that world to get into corporate finance, I transitioned through, I got a full ride to study economics at the University of Michigan, and then followed that with an MBA in finance where I met Josh. Yeah, and after the MBA, I started in investment banking, and then with the 2001 dot-com bust and subsequent crash, 9/11 crash, I turned to workouts and turnarounds, where I did that workouts and turnarounds consulting for 3 years, and then started directly overseeing companies. The first company was a $12 million manufacturer. We grew that to 85 million in 5 years. And then the last company I oversaw was as CFO of a $1.2 billion business unit for BASF.
And so on this venture, obviously you have a lot of experience building and growing organizations. And, as you mentioned, like, it's tough at the beginning when you're the only one that really gets the idea. What was that validation point, or the moment where you were like, somebody finally gets what I'm doing, and we have some momentum behind us?
Yeah, that was a journey. It's been a 5-year journey, almost 6 years now. The first couple of years, I tried to sell the idea to the existing industry, and they all knew what I was talking about. They all understood that the demand existed, and they all understood that this was the future. However, they weren't going to move on it. And then I read The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen, and the light bulb went off in my mind. And I understood that this had to be a startup because it was too disruptive to the existing industry. And that was also the opportunity. So I kept investigating, the demand side of the market, interviewing a lot of interior designers, industry professionals, and just talking to everyone about this whole concept that if you could get custom furniture easily, would you? And through those conversations, fractional CFO Tino started getting orders via email from professional designers and from customers asking for things that they could not buy. And that was the indication that, okay, there's a huge latent demand. It's fragmented, but it's latent and it exists. So that was the demand side validation. The following year, I met one of my original co-founders, and he said we should be able to control the CNC machines with augmented reality. And that was the perfect solution, because all of a sudden you're translating what's in your mind, what's in desire through your eyes. You're translating it into a form, a model and we translate that into the manufacturing instructions. And so we applied for a patent for that, and we got it.
Great. Yeah, and you mentioned one of your co-founders, and now you have a pretty strong team behind you. How did you, or what did you look for in deciding to bring different people on board to be part of Baru?
Yeah, I looked for their different strengths, and then also what we're building is an organization that replaces a vertical. So I need different talents and different skills, and so I sought those skills like anyone does when you're building an organization, and then I also look for the culture of cooperation and candor, and all the things that you really need in a high-paced organization.
Yeah, no, love to hear it. And then, I've heard you describe in our previous conversations that Baru itself, your first market is in the furniture space, but the overall vision is, many different industries beyond that. So where do you see the big picture vision, or, the future of Baru heading?
We're going to stick with woodworking for the foreseeable future. Because it's a huge market already, and it's an extremely inefficient market. And we can, with the same machines, we can produce various wood products. So we're already doing a soft launch with kitchen cabinets. With each kitchen order, we get to instantaneous economies of scale. And we've already sold a number of kitchens in New York and for a corporate office in Manhattan. And we're starting to tap into and get traction with the property flipper market in the Bay Area. So we're already quoting those. Yeah, that's even before we get to a website. We haven't even built the website, so it's good.
Oh, great. Yeah, so, and then I know you've taken a couple different approaches, or you mentioned some of your investors and prospective investors are on the call here. I know you've done like a successful equity crowdfunding campaign too. Yeah, like how has the investment and fundraising process gone for you? Or, what have you learned throughout that process so far?
What have I learned? I've learned that it's hard to introduce a new idea to investors. And, even though this is a very similar business model as so many others that have previously worked, the fact that we're doing it we might be the first to do it in furniture, and makes it a tough message to convey. But this is really analogous to print on demand T-shirts, right? Or coffee mugs. That's all it is. It's the fundraising process. We're getting a lot more meetings this quarter than we have in prior quarters, and so that's looking very promising. And yeah, I don't want to count my chickens before the eggs.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you can't count the investments until you get the check, but great to start off, start off the new year strong here. And then, in terms of, basically being able to, or yeah, like you mentioned a couple examples like the t-shirt on-demand market. Are those some of the startups and, now they're larger corporate companies, a lot of them, are those the companies you look for to see how they've innovated and, how they marketed their business models? Or where do you turn to like see how other startups have done this before?
Always trying to absorb information and take lessons away from it. This ultimately, we've got a two-sided marketplace, but the supply side is really easy to set up. So it's actually the challenge is demand generation. That's why, until now, all of our sales have been coming 100% organically through Google, people finding us on Google. And now I'm doing the direct sales approach with property flippers. That's why I'm currently in San Jose. And because the Bay Area market for homes is hot, and it's at a price point where, the imported cabinets don't really do the homes justice. And so we are quoting customized kitchen cabinets at IKEA-like prices and still offering 3 times higher quality materials, customization for every box, every cabinet, customization dimensionally as well as materials and colors, and then offering it in 3 weeks as opposed to, the supply chain disrupted at 18 weeks that IKEA and others are offering. And we're still able to earn quite a lot of margin that we split with a manufacturing partner.
Have you been facing, I know, overall in the industry, anything, especially, wood products and anything furniture related has experienced a lot of delays the last year or so, with supply chain issues. Has that been a problem on your side, or have you been able to avoid that?
Since September, supply chain has been an issue, just delivery of components. 2 weeks ago, there was, I kept getting these notices from FedEx that they hadn't unloaded their trailer yet for over a week.
Right.
And so we're suffering supply chain issues too. But one thing that we're doing to be able to mitigate this is because we're not building inventory and we don't have these long supply chains. We have a simple bill of materials and machine instructions. We can change the machine instructions in order to make the bill of materials dynamic. So we can swap out different components if components are not available, and that mitigates some of those unavailable components issues.
Right.
Whereas a typical manufacturer, their manufacturing and their bill of materials is generally a rigid structure. It's a fixed structure, and if something's not available, those companies, they kind of throw up their hands and say, sorry, we can't do anything, and where we can flex a little bit more.
Yeah, no, that makes sense with the on-demand style model. And yeah, I mean, you're even helping the manufacturers you work with that too, since they're not building up inventory either until you have a product ready to, ready for them to build.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and so now you're gaining, more traction in the market, or you mentioned, started off with just people, more organic organic searches of your company, which is great. Now there's partners or, you know, B2B customers you have involved as well. So like, what are you looking for, you know, say the next quarter of the year? Like, what are some of your goals to keep growing the business? And, you know, what have you set as some of the highlights you want your team to solve in the, you know, the beginning of the year here?
Yeah, I'd like to bring my team on full time because right now it's yeah, without a full time team, I can't scale Baru being chief everything officer. I really need the first 3 people to be full time, which are operations related, non-manufacturing engineering and the fulfillment and operations. And so creating, bringing those folks on full time will allow us to create these this customer service oriented standard operating procedures that make it easy for both the customer and our manufacturers. And that those procedures will make it a lot easier to scale.
Right. All right.
We're Uberizing the process.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, and then you talked about yeah, well, you know, one of the books you read that really helped on the journey, like, you know, what are some of the sources, whether it's books or podcasts or other advice you've turned to, or, you know, other lessons you've read that you'd recommend for our startup community here?
Yeah, I recommend certainly reading the classics like Crossing the Chasm, The Innovator's Dilemma, and then The Founder's Dilemma. But also staying current with blogs, like good blogs like NFX and First Round, and then getting good mentors like Dave Culver. He's been a great mentor, and because he's not afraid of candor, nor am I, and that's super valuable. You can't even pay for candor actually, but he gives it for free.
Yeah, no, it's always great to get get advice that's not just, or yeah, like you said, you know, more candor than just saying something because it's what the other person wants to hear. So yeah, that advice that's going to help you no matter what, you know, positive or negative. And yeah, definitely having great mentors and advisors on board, as well as, you know, listening to other stories from authors. Yeah, love the advice there. So
you and your crew at Prepare for BC, I mean, you guys provided a perspective that I found valuable.
Appreciate that. Yeah, and no, always great. I mean, yeah, and you know, your perspective too. I think part of the reason we do these fireside chats and discussions is a lot of times you get, you know, a lot of times you don't get the chance to learn from other entrepreneurs throughout the process, and being able to showcase what the journey actually looks like from entrepreneurs that are going through it. So yeah, I mean, that's a big focus. And so like, yeah, I mean, you want to learn from entrepreneurs that have exited companies. You want to learn from entrepreneurs that are going through the process now, and continue to get all the advice and resources you can. And you've done both with your first company into Baru now. So yeah, definitely an exciting journey. Want to keep it open if anybody has any questions they want to put into the chat here. But yeah, as we're looking for that, just want to touch on, you know, what from your perspective, basically getting the customers on board, or the way you market and talk about Baru, has that changed? Like, I know the whole business model and the manufacturing process remained relatively the same, but have you started talking differently to the end customer that's buying the furniture than you did at the beginning? And what was the process of figuring out what message actually stuck?
Well, first of all, we're not doing any active marketing, but the entire company was based on a data first approach. And even, our top sellers, for example, we designed after seeing some trending searches that trending keyword searches that were not resulting in great outcomes or product finds. And so and those words were sit, stand, desk with drawers. And a year ago, when or even currently, when you search for that, the results can be pretty meager. And then the hypothesis that it's easy to find what you want, but it's hard to find it in the configuration you need. That is proving true because people are ordering in the furniture in the dimensions and a wide range of dimensions, from 40 inches and minimum size to 7 feet long in various depths according to how many screens they had, for example. And so that mass customization hypothesis, the hypothesis that there would be demand for mass customization, for mass customized goods, is proving to be true. And
so your process is basically analyzing what people are already searching, and then if there wasn't a leader in that category, you became the top search in that category and led people to Baru.
Yeah, and that will continue to be the case, I think, because at least for the consumer side, but for the B2B side, it'll be a little bit different.
Right.
But ultimately, we're creating machine-ready models, and so that we can produce more efficiently and locally, and the financial, the finances of the business are really based on local production and on-demand production using these underused assets.
Yeah, and I know there's there's an impact piece of this as well in terms of the the supplies you use, the efficiency of everything, and how do you weave that into the overall mission of Baru?
There's a huge impact component by reducing what's currently a global supply chain into a hometown process or a series of hometown ecosystems, and connecting local manufacturers with local customers and local suppliers. The impact is huge in terms of just the CO2 avoidance. And we're actually carbon negative because we plant 3 trees for every product that we sell, and those trees replace the wood that we use. And after 3 years, they start absorbing more CO2 than we put into the world with our hometown processes. But we're also reshoring manufacturing back into our communities. That creates jobs, that supports small businesses. And reducing landfills, because and there are all kinds of positive externalities coming out of this business just by rethinking it.
Perfect. And then wanted to tie in a question from Serge here. He was asking, when you did a crowdfunding round or after that, did you have any resistance from VCs, on the cap table, or were they pretty open to the crowdfunding component?
Yeah, the crowdfunding platforms, they've gotten smart in the past few years. They've created syndicates for the individual investors to go into. So on Baru's cap table, the WeFunder crowdfunding is one line item, is one investor.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Yeah, you get to have, and did you find most of the crowdfunding investors had heard of Baru or were in your network as potential clients already, or were they people that you were also marketing to at the same time?
It was, we were pre-revenue when we did the crowdfunding raise. So it was only folks that liked the idea and saw at least a part of the vision.
Oh, great. And yeah, so I'll open it up. If anybody does want to, unmic, ask a question now. If not, we can go into a couple more questions here. But yeah, feel free to either unmic and I'll look at that, or use the reaction tab to raise your hand here. And yeah, I want to get anyone's questions answered if they haven't been able to share already. And yeah, while we're waiting there, so, Baru, oh, here we go. Wait. Sorry, I thought I saw something. Yeah, so, being able, tying in, or I guess, what's your opinion on, there's a lot of technology behind the scenes in what you're creating versus, a simplified messaging to the consumer of basically, you can use our website or use our mobile application and create custom furniture in your space versus presenting, the technology behind it of, we use augmented reality, we create this decentralized system. Like, how much of the tech are you explaining to the customers versus explaining just what they're getting at the end level?
Very little, the messaging I A/B tested on our, on above the fold, and what seemed to resonate was local manufacturing, and so that's what we communicate. We're using we're tapping into local manufacturers, and it's that buy local and the environmental aspects that seem to resonate with folks. In the future, what we'll communicate may be different.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. The less, and the less consumer education you have to do, and if there's already something they're excited to get behind, then it's more of the technical piece is more of the feature rather than the solution for them. So I really like the approach there. And
that said, there's a new platform that we've been invited to participate in. It's a new marketplace, and it's an interesting spin on the online interior design space, where the shopper can upload their floor plan and self-design their room in virtual, and with the components that you see on their marketplace. And so we'll be listing our products on that marketplace.
Oh, great. How much focus do you have on, channel partners or other services like that you could plug into versus, versus the direct to consumer B2B approach?
Yeah, we like repeat customers, and as we establish ourselves in the Bay Area for custom kitchens to property flippers, then there are influencers among the region that we can pay for continued exposure and promotion of what we offer. And plus, they all talk, they all know each other, they all go to the same meetups, and so
right.
there will be we'll tap into some of those influencers and as channel partners. And yeah, we're always looking at partnerships.
Yeah. Any big trends you've seen overall in terms of, the tech advancements? You started this 5 years ago, anything that's come a really long way that's enabled more of the next features and functions of Baru to take shape?
The iPhone 13, 12 Pro and 13 Pro now have LiDAR, but it's still not 100% accurate. And so I'm looking forward to when it becomes more accurate enough to really do measurements in the AR with the AR user interface. But yeah, so I'm not pushing this AR feature too heavily right now.
Okay. And then, another audience question on how do you solve if furniture fits into the room but can't get into the door, or unexpected measurements like that? Any scenarios on that side?
Yeah, Serge, generally the larger pieces are delivered flat. We're only doing wood furniture, so we're not dealing with couches or things like that.
So like pre-assembled.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
depending on where it's getting delivered. Like we have a couple of huge pieces going to a home in Knoxville, Tennessee, and those will be delivered pre-assembled because it's a Knoxville mega mansion home. But in the deliveries to Greenwich Village, for example, are almost always delivered unassembled, or at least only partially assembled, and then the assembly is done by our delivery partner in the home.
Right. All right, that makes sense. Any feedback you've gotten from customer or repeat customers that have changed the direction or changed the focus areas you've had for Baru? Or maybe added to something that wasn't originally on the table?
Yeah, one gentleman in Austin asked us if he could have his desk 35 inches deep because he had multiple monitors, and so we accommodated that. After looking at the engineering of it and other considerations, so we'll be expanding the range of depths on all of our desks. Otherwise, our repeat customers, 20% of our sales are from repeat buyers, whether they're interior designers or individuals who've bought multiple pieces. But we don't have such a huge data set that we can learn from our own data.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, and then I know, like personally, you've been really active in the startup community overall through several accelerators, see you at different networking events and, speaking at different events as well. So anything you've seen or, you don't typically see in other startups that you think, everybody should from day one, like be focused on as an entrepreneur? Anything you typically find as something that's holding other founders back that you'd like to mention and highlight here in our chat?
Yeah, of course I can't walk there. I don't know what they're living. Every founder and every company is a little bit different. But I think generally, I wonder what, when I hear about companies, I wonder what their financial model is, which is kind of natural for me, I guess, given my background in finance.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, with the CFO background, yeah, no, so like, and typically is your first thought exploring business models that have worked in the past, or creating a new business model that might fit try something new on the market.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, is your first approach in a startup, would it be looking at business models, financial models that have worked for other companies, or would it be, figure out from scratch what might be an innovative business model for your business?
Yeah, so I started Baru looking at the demand side, the customer experience, because my own experience of not being able to buy furniture, I tested that among others, and I discovered that demand existed. And then I came up with this came up with this idea of using underused manufacturing assets, the robotics, and making that process efficient. And what came out of making that process efficient was a bunch of financial advantages. And so my next step was looking at, I did a blue ocean analysis of the industry and how we could tap into our more efficient cost structure to, and how that would inform how we could focus our own efforts. And so that's how I approached it. I looked at customer demand. I looked at how are we going to deliver on those customer desires, needs. And then I looked at the financial model. I always look at the financial model,
right,
and back test it with data, and created the operating model based on the financial projections that I came up with.
Yeah, and I mean, with every two-sided marketplace, there's always one side that's more difficult than the others. And you mentioned earlier that's the demand side for you, and so it sounds like you started with that, making sure you could fill, and there was real consumer demand, and then took that, went to the suppliers, got them on board.
Yeah,
perfect. Cool. Yeah, so no, I mean, I love the story and everything you've built, and excited to see this continue here. So everybody coming out, everybody listening, we're going to be putting this on the Startup Grind YouTube channel as well, that's shared among all the chapters. What are the best ways, whether it's somebody that's listening wants to check out furniture for themselves, or wants to follow along with the Baru story and keep up to date on everything you're doing, where should they be looking for all that information?
Yeah, if you go to our website, hellobaru.com, it's written in my little signature there. At the bottom of the homepage, there are all our social media links. If you would follow them, that would be awesome. And you can also contact me at tino@hellobaru.com for any more information, or just to chit chat about how we can work together.
And what's been your biggest seller, the most attractive item on your site so far?
It's been the sit-stand desk with drawer. It's a super clean design and very practical.
So it works for, I mean, yeah, and more health conscious as well, right? Like, being able to,
Absolutely,
yeah, sit or stand, not having to be stuck at the desk, for 8 hours in a row. No, I like that. And yeah, so we'll definitely share. Really like how you have it in your name here as well. And yeah, we'll share that information in our follow-up to everybody that came out as well. Definitely want to highlight having, we'll be posting this on our startupgrind.com/Boston site too, under the event for today. It'll be in there as a recap video. So definitely appreciate everybody that came out. If you have other questions, other areas we can help with, including there's a listing of other partners, other sponsors of our chapter that give back to the startup community. Definitely check that out. Again, startupgrind.com/Boston. Feel free to send me a message as well if there's anything I can help out with directly. And we're going to be having a couple updates on the global conference, you know, over the next week or so. And then, yeah, we'll be hosting more of these fireside chat panel discussions. And also we'll be announcing a Startup Grind Boston collaborative summit in March as well. It'll also be a virtual summit with an in-person networking session there as well. So yeah, Tino, no, I love all the advice, all the you know, stories you've shared with us today. And yeah, really appreciate this. And yeah, thanks for everything you're doing for the startup community.
The innovation is an awesome thing. And yeah, anyone that wants to innovate and wants to change things for the better, I'm all for.
Appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, it's super exciting. So, you know, definitely great to see even how far you've come the last, you know, all the progress the last 6 months, the last year or so here. And I know, you know, the momentum is going to continue. So yeah, thanks again, everybody that came out and everyone that's been part of us. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.